All right, Bill, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We want to thank Bill and TechCA for giving us the opportunity to talk about California state parks and the uniqueness of and the diversity that is state parks, and learn a little bit more about how our information technology division supports the various programs within our state park system. With me today is Robert Blesi. He's the Chief Technology Officer of State Parks, and he's really one of our unsung heroes. And I wanted to get him out here in front of everybody today so you guys can meet Robert and listen to what he has to say about some of the challenges and opportunities that we have in our infrastructure for state parks. So say hello, Robert.
Thank you, Patrick. Nice to be here. I'm happy to speak about some of the things that are important to me today. So thank you all for being here. Thanks,
Robert. Also with me today is Paul Banas. Paul Banas is our data architect here at State Parks. Paul does wonders with data and has really expanded and built our data management program within State Parks, and is allowing us to step into making data-driven decisions as an organization. And we're super thankful for Paul and the work that he does, and for being here today. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Patrick, and thanks, Bill, for hosting us.
All right. So we're going to talk today about meeting some challenges. So last time that I had done some talking about state parks in a public forum, we talked about how diverse State Parks is as an organization, and the folks that support State Parks, our employees, and the folks that take care of our cultural and natural resources within our state park system. And so today we're going to talk about, our recreational spaces, our cultural assets, and our workforce, and how we help support those through technology. And so first and foremost, I wanted to share a little bit of information about state parks. So we have 279 state park units within California state parks, with over 340 miles of coastline, 970 miles of lake and river frontage, 15,000 campsites, and over 5,200 miles of trails within our state park system. Talking about our cultural assets, we have 4 restored lighthouses, 14 museums, nearly 50 state historic parks, 3,100 historic buildings, and more than 11,000 archaeological sites, and over 1 million cultural items and artifacts. So little known fact about State Parks is the curator of one of the largest museum collections in the entire world. When you think about state parks and you think about the workforce, many of you probably think about the park aide that is at the kiosk when you enter state parks to go and enjoy your state park for a hike, or to do some fishing or some boating, and maybe you might think about the state park superintendent, law enforcement officer that's there to keep you safe. But state parks has a large variety of employees and professions that work for state parks to help not only manage but curate and care for the state parks themselves and the cultural, natural, and historic resources that we are obligated to manage. And so State Parks has 3,400 full-time employees. More than 3,000 seasonal employees and volunteers come on about this time of year for our busy season through about October or so. So the organization swells to around 6,400 folks. We have over 200 employee job classifications. So everything from scientists, archaeologists, aquatic pest control folks, museum curators, peace officers, historians, professional foresters, civil engineers, carpenters, attorneys, and us, the folks in IT. So as you can imagine, with that diversity of workforce and business programs to support, working in IT for state parks is a unique opportunity and challenge, and it's a great place to work. Some of the information technology initiatives and challenges that I'll be discussing today, I picked 5 major initiatives to speak about in today's session. In the interest of time, I'm going to move along pretty quickly to allow Robert and Paul an opportunity to talk about theirs as well. I'm more than willing, as Bill said, to take questions and answers at the end. So the first item I'm going to talk about today is the statewide rural connectivity contract. That's a contract that state parks partnered with Department of Technology on to create a statewide contract for rural connectivity. I'm going to talk a little bit about the current reservation system, Reserve California. Talking about the planning, kicking off the planning for our new request for proposal for our new reservation system. I'm going to talk about our Wi-Fi concessions contract, and finally wrap that up with a little bit about our attendance data challenge and kind of where we're looking to go from that perspective. So with no further ado, we'll jump into the statewide rural connectivity contract. I've spoke about this several times in the past. Back in 2021, I reached out to Department of Technology to talk to them about procurement vehicles that would be available for getting connectivity into rural spaces. One of the challenges that I had been provided by my directorate when I first came on board back in 2018 was, how do we solve the connectivity challenge? In looking at different opportunities that were out there in the statewide CalNet contract and other market research that we had performed, looking at people who specialized in rural connectivity, we quickly realized that there was no procurement vehicle for those folks in that line of business to do business with the state of California. And so we partnered with Department of Technology. I was the sponsor executive, and we were the sponsor agency for developing a statewide IFB for rural connectivity companies. And so real quickly to go over some of the project goals, we wanted to deliver broadband to hard to reach places. The state park system, as I've stated before, is 279 unique locations, but of those 279 locations, about 100 of those or so are connectivity challenged, and right around 70 or so are really connectivity mission impossible, as I put it. And so we really need to take a look at expanding connectivity to those hard to reach parks in order to expand and modernize our park system, and to achieve some of the other goals that I'll speak about later. But really, we look at the connectivity as a baseline for all things that we want to do from a broader perspective in modernizing our state parks and our state parks experience. The IFB was set up as a no upfront cost, so it's a managed service. What that means is that it's each individual RFO that's leveraged against the statewide IFB is a unique build project, and so those are also bid as a monthly managed service. And so there's two different options that the state has in order to procure those services. One is as a no upfront cost or a managed monthly service fee, and the other would be a bid for a one-time cost over the 8-year term of the contract. So we thought that flexibility was important as part of setting up the statewide rural connectivity contract to allow departments, when they have a windfall of additional funds in their budget, to be able to take advantage of that and spend that money in fiscal year. And when they do not, to be able to manage that at a predictable monthly rate. So one of the things that we added to the contract was the concept of value-added services. So many of these companies in this space have many different value-added services within their portfolio that we would also wanted to take advantage of. And I'm going to get into that here, I think, on the next slide, and provide you with some examples. But really, these value-added services that can be attached to this broadband connectivity was really about furthering automation, public safety, teleworking for our parks employees that live on site, and different types of connectivity that would be needed not only for state parks, but this is a statewide contract that serves all statewide departments, public entities, schools, and municipalities as well. So some of the contract details: it's a multi-award contract. It was awarded to 4 different vendors in the rural connectivity space. The baseline term was 8 years with some additional 1-year extensions for a maximum of up to 10 years on this contract. This is the list of awarded vendors. So these are the 4 vendors that were awarded. We started off the the IFB bidding process with about 15 or so different companies that expressed interest, and slowly whittled it down to these 4 that really had our objectives already kind of molded into their business plan. So when speaking about some of those value-added services, and when I get into one of the following slides on our new reservation system and kind of the vision for that, really these value-added services are a large part of that. When we procure our next generation reservation system, we're really looking at a holistic system that provides not only, for connectivity and for park entry at our kiosk locations for day use and camping, but also a myriad of these other types of technologies that can help to provide a more modern experience for our parks visitors. And so we're looking at things like, automated payment machines, replacing our Iron Rangers, getting out of the cash collection business, pay by phone, similar to how you pay for parking downtown here in Sacramento, to pay with your phone from the ease of your vehicle. Also to be able to purchase on your phone things like annual passes, purchase tours on some of our tour locations. We're looking at installing license plate recognition for quick park entry as an opportunity to lessen the lines and expedite park entry for our parks visitors. Remote control cameras are for things like public safety and being able to have the visibility into some of our more secure locations. Things like digital signage at our park entries, being able to provide for an automated experience while using our utility stations or dumping your RV. The idea is to have a one-stop shop really on your mobile phone to be able to access and pay for your trip or vacation in advance, and have a digital wallet, which I'll get into later, for paying for those things. So one of the first examples, we're having essentially a proof of concept or a pilot project. We've been working with the San Diego Association of Governments to connect us with the community of Borrego Springs, and they're super excited. So Anza Borrego Desert State Park is the largest state park within our system. It's in the Southern California desert, and it's hundreds of thousands. I don't have the figure. Robert will probably help me with it, but it's hundreds of thousands of acres of space, and it's hot, and it gets dangerous out there when folks get stranded. And so one of the things that we're looking to do is using the Anza Borrego Desert State Park as our first implementation using our rural connectivity contract. And so what we're looking to do there is a couple of different things. One, there's 2 major objectives to our use of the rural connectivity contract. One, to expand services, to be able to provide a more modern experience in our state parks, and also to help with our public safety. But not just that, one of the things that the work group that put the statewide IFB together, and just a quick note, that work group consisted of representatives from about 20 different state departments, IT groups. And one of the main conversations that we had was, how do we leverage state-owned property to help solve the larger objectives around getting broadband connectivity to underserved communities? And so as part of that conversation, we have been in many conversations, like I said, with Sandag and others, about how do we leverage state property as a hop-off point for nearby adjacent underserved communities. And so we're going to do that in Borrego Springs. This is a quick diagram of how the network is set up, and maybe not too interesting for most folks on the call, but we're separating out state traffic from that traffic that will be going directly to the internet for things like point of sale and credit card transactions. So moving on from the rural connectivity contract onto our current reservation system. Our current reservation system is Reserve California, and I got a picture of the front page here when you go onto our website. Our Reserve California website is our largest publicly used system for state parks. It's a major generator of our department's revenue. It is the system that folks use to make camping reservations, also to make reservations for things like historic tours at Hearst Castle and other locations within our state park system. You can also sign up to attend interpretive programs, the Junior Lifeguard program, purchase annual passes, and also purchase day use passes out of our current reservation system. This is just a quick solution overview of the reservation system. Some of the folks, when you think about a reservation system or a e-commerce system like this, you think about the public facing piece of that application, but there is a whole internal management function piece that's very important to the management of our support services, our reporting and analytics, our inventory management, right? So there's essentially two different sides to our reservation system: the external piece that our visitors transact with, and then the internal piece that state park support staff work with to manage inventory, to manage tours, and to change any specifics around any of those types of products and or services that we provide as a result of our reservation system. And so this is just a quick infographic that outlines the two different sides of the dynamic. So on the new, so we just started, actually we had a project kickoff this week on Monday to kick off the planning for our new reservation system contract. So we have a great current reservation system. Our challenge is that our existing contract is going to expire at the end of July of 2024. And so we've kicked off the planning for our new reservation system and begin to plan for what the scope of that solution is going to look like. And as I stated earlier, we're looking for a holistic solution. We're looking for things that integrate and tie in data from multiple sources. So the data that comes out of the pay-by-phone applications, the data that comes from the APMs, the data that comes from the LPR and the cameras, right? We want to make sure that we have all that data integrated together so that we can make management decisions around the management of our state park system. And so it's very important to make sure to convey that. One of my points I wanted to make during this meeting for sure. But so this time we're going to manage the project as a state IT project. We're going to partner with CDT for that contract. We are going to go through the project approval lifecycle. We're going to develop the statement of work for the RFP. Recently, we've procured the services of Newport Technology Services to help us with the RFO and the RFP development. We're looking for things like I touched on before. So real-time campsite and amenity information. We're going to have requirements for a geospatial component to that so that folks can get a much better look at their prospective campsites than they do now. And really looking to enhance that visitor experience, as I stated earlier. So we're looking at adding things like event information to our website, weather information, notifications for trip planning. So what that might look like is if you schedule a vacation or you schedule some time to camp in one of our beautiful campsites, the system will alert you to other locations in the area that have similar characteristics that you might enjoy on your way. So things like that. I touched on earlier the virtual passes and the digital wallet. We want to move away from having the actual physical placard hanging in your car or having to be stuck to your vehicle or vehicle window, but rather moving towards, in a lot of cases where we can, a virtual pass that actually lives on your phone, similar to purchasing concert tickets or entering a Kings game, right? You'll be able to scan your phone upon park entry, and we'll be able to collect information about you and the fact that you attended the park, and be able to keep real-time statistics on visitation and how full the park is, for instance, in the event of a crowding or some form of emergency situation, right? We're talking about an establishment of a digital wallet. So as I stated earlier, the ability to go ahead and pay for your trip in advance and all the services that you might need while you're in our state park system, to be able to load that wallet and pay digitally at our state parks locations. We're also taking a look at things like gift cards as part of that. And so that would be another great addition to our line of services. One of the, so moving on from, that was our new reservation system. And as I stated, I'll take questions at the end for sure. One of the other things that we got going on right now is our Wi-Fi concessions contract. So one of the ideas that we had about 2 years ago was in talking about Wi-Fi to our state parks. We do offer free Wi-Fi, but it's very limited in scope and range and throughput. So that limited free Wi-Fi will remain in place, but in addition to that, we have procured a contract through our parks partner concession model to have Wi-Fi as a service. And so this is similar to the Wi-Fi that you get in an airplane or you can purchase at a hotel. If you wish to upgrade your Wi-Fi while you're camping at our state park so that you can telework from that location, you'll be able to have the ability to do so. So we originally released the RFP back in October of 2020 during the pandemic. And so it's taken us a little while, but we've finally awarded our contractor. Our contractor for that is Access Parks. That project is kicking off. We anticipate installations to be taking place this year in 2022. And we have, as part of that contract, 95 mandatory park locations where that service will be installed and available, and 107 optional parks at the discretion of Access Parks and state parks. That contract term is 10 years. And so again, this is just some of the details around that Wi-Fi concessions contract. There's no upfront costs to the state. So we procured this as a revenue share model. So the vendor Access Parks is taking care of all the upfront costs and has really figured those into their revenue models. So no cost to the state. It's a fully managed service and will be a help to further our internal parks interpretive programs and educational programs, which I think one of which Robert will talk about later, which is really, really cool. And then provide us with some real-time visitation information and the ability to, in the event of an emergency or another needed communication, message parks visitors in real time that are procured the service. So we're looking forward to this. It's another opportunity for technology to help create a new revenue stream for the department. And we think it's going to be well received by our state parks visitors. One of the primary challenges at state parks, and it has been for a while, is gaining data on and collecting data on parks attendance. We have multiple sources of park entry. There's, as I stated earlier, there's our reservation system, right, for folks to use to make reservations to enter our state parks. There's the day use point of sale at our kiosks. There's pay by phone. There's APMs. There's still the old Iron Rangers with a cash envelope. And so one of the things that we're really wanting to do is start finding a way to collect visitor attendance data. The reservation system data we have, right? We can tell who's made reservations and who's gone camping, but that day use information, who's parked in our parking lot and went on a hike, right? Who's just going down to the beach to do some fishing. Things like that is much more difficult to collect. And that information is very useful when doing park planning and park management, as you can imagine. Additionally, it's very useful to have attendance data, trends analysis for our law enforcement officers that help to keep everybody safe. So it's really collecting that data and then cross-referencing it against other available information that we have in order to make data-driven decisions, and the ability to reach out to folks to, let them know that the park system is here for them and to enjoy their stay at state parks. And so things that we're looking for at is, data correlation and across those different sources that I mentioned. We have many remote locations. So one of the stream or threads that you're going to hear throughout this whole entire presentation is really the dependency on connectivity in order to make that happen. And so that's why we're looking at the rural connectivity contract and as a way and a means to set that baseline to be able to bring some of these services and data to state parks. So another slide on data, some of the initiatives, we're looking at leveraging the data warehouse, which Paul will get into later, about how to collect, store, correlate, standardize all of our attendance data. We want to create attendance dashboards, not only at the headquarters level, but at the district level, so that the individual district superintendents that are managing those parks, districts, and regions can have as up to real life information as current time as we possibly can. And then extending, different types of access points to those remote locations and identify other opportunities such as mobility data. So there is new technology that will help state parks, to be able to, sense the individual cell phone. I'm losing my words, but an individual cell phone when they're in our park, the state parks lands. And so we're taking a look at whether or not there's opportunities for that types of thing that has been used during the pandemic by multiple city and county park departments for tracking potential transmission of COVID during the pandemic. And so leveraging some of those technologies and opportunities that came about during the pandemic, and how do we continue to keep that ball rolling. So now I'm going to kick it over to Robert to cover some of our state parks IT infrastructure challenges. Robert, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, boss. So I've been with parks since March of 1987. I signed up for the Lifeguard swim, and back in those days, we had the exact same issues that we have now, but all of the things that we just talked about, they didn't exist. This is all brand new, and IT's brought that to the department. So I'm extremely proud of all of it. If you look at the slide that I've put together here on the top left side, you've got Bodie. Bodie is in the middle of nowhere. It is a historic town where they did gold mining, and it was abandoned and it became a park. So it is 11 miles from the nearest fiber connection. So in order to trench and run fiber to this kiosk, it is multiple millions of dollars. So when IT brings connectivity into a park, we have to be extremely creative. And what we did was we tied into Caltrans, one of their near facilities that had internet access, and we did a wireless point-to-point from the Caltrans building to the Queen Bee repeater, which is on top of the Bodie Mountain there. And then we run from that repeater internet connectivity into Bodie. So in the wintertime, Bodie is not accessible. I mean, you would have to be in a snowcat to get in and out of Bodie. It's a ghost town. There's ghosts there, and the park staff that are there, they need connectivity. They need something other than a satellite cell phone. So we've taken Bodie, we've had a deferred maintenance project where we trenched through the town of Bodie. We put network connectivity into some of the primary buildings. We can now do tours there virtually. And so it is a huge success for us. So if you look at a couple of the other slides, we have coastal property. So you would think that anything that's near the coast has network connectivity, but fiber generally runs along all of the freeway systems in California, but it doesn't go straight to the beach, or it doesn't go into the redwoods. So the coastal site that I have there, I believe that is Salt Point. And then you've got the redwoods to the next slide. And then also you see the lifeguard. So everywhere where there's beaches, we have 200 lifeguard towers that provide public safety and make sure people are safe when they're on state park property. So connectivity, once it comes into the park, we extend that connectivity through wireless to the ranger office, to the lifeguard station if it's a coastal site. And then we also connect to SCADA. SCADA is something I could talk about forever, but I just want to briefly touch on it. California state parks, at all the 279 parks that we have, the majority of the water comes from the ground or the reservoir or the river. So our staff are responsible for treating that water and making sure that it's safe for public consumption. So we extend network connectivity into our SCADA environment so that we can have up to the minute monitoring of water for public safety. The last thing is camera systems. Most people, when you think about camera systems, in the old days, we had cameras on the sea lions down at Año Nuevo. And then we had cameras that tracked surf conditions for the public so they could take a look at the surf on our camera systems before they actually drove to the park. But today, the big thing is fire. So we actually have camera systems on top of our mountain repeaters that have software that tracks smoke detection. So whenever we see smoke, it's automated. It informs allied agencies that we have a possible fire, and the technology involved is just so amazing. The slide that I put on the top right there, it's actually a controlled burn, nothing crazy, but the cameras would detect that smoke and notify us that there is smoke in our parks or in our area. And then the other thing, the Hearst Castle slide down at the photo down at the bottom, Hearst Castle, it's a beautiful place, but there's no network connectivity there. Even to this day, we are running a wireless internet service provider that was giving us about 30 to 60 meg, and our R2S2 or our reservation system network is actually 4 bonded T1 lines, which is the best we could do to get connectivity to that site. So when everyone else is running gigabit at home, a lot of our park locations are lucky to have something in the 5 to 20 meg connection speed. All right, Patrick, next slide for me. So as I said, I did the lifeguard swim in March of 1987. So I'm going on 35 years now. And when we first started, the way we did lifeguard dispatch was we had phone lines run to every single tower, and the phone lines were buried in the ground. And then at each tower, we had just a phone that the lifeguard would take off the hook. And when he took the phone off the hook, it would light up a switchboard at headquarters. And this switchboard is something that you would see from the 50s and 60s, where a phone operator would actually take a cable and connect Tower 7 to Tower 5 or to headquarters. And that's how you would speak. And that's how you would know that one of the lifeguards was out on a rescue. They would throw the handset off, grab the buoy, and run out. And all lifeguard headquarters would see is that Tower 7 is lit up. So you would send the mobile Jeep down there to check, and Towers 6 and 8 would scan the rest of the beach in Tower 7's area. So recently we've had a contract with Team SOS. They installed a fully cellular-based system. So on top of every single one of our lifeguard towers, we have solar panels, and then we have a box inside with all of the networking equipment, and we have dual SIM cellular connectivity, and it's been extremely reliable. And then it connects into a computer-aided dispatch system or CAD system at lifeguard headquarters. So they can see all the mobile units. We have the Jeeps, we have the boats, we have the jet skis. They can track the location of all of those, as well as the status of the towers. So it is a state-of-the-art system that I am extremely proud of. I believe that it's something that we could implement all over the world. It is literally that great. So on to the next slide. Okay, so I can't believe I get to talk about this. So when I first started at parks, I thought just like everybody else, there's maintenance staff, there's park entrance station staff, and then you've got your rangers and lifeguards. And that's pretty much all that I thought parks was. And then I realized we have 1/3 of our employees are professional staff, archaeologists, resource ecologists, plant and wildlife biologists, architects, engineers, historians, just across the board, these amazing people. And each park would give tours, and you have your historians, your tour guides, your interpreters, and schools would have field trips to their local park. Well, with some schools not having the funds to get to Sutter's Fort where gold was discovered, or to go to Angel Island to learn about immigration into California, they would be left out. So we took technology and we started out with 8 to 12 parks. And through video conferencing, we could connect the school to the park itself and show gold panning or show Angel Island. And so in the slide here in the middle, it's actually a maintenance gator, one of the 4 to 6 wheeled vehicles. We have outfitted this with a camera system, with a generator, with a dual SIM Meraki device on top, computer system. And the guide that you see in the front middle photo is the guide that you see on the top right there with their thumbs up speaking to a class. So it's just amazing technology. We've grown from 8 to 12 parks 15 years ago, and we're now close to 50 parks. We have 47 parks. If you go to their website, which I didn't list here, but it's ports-ca.us, you can see this program, and it is absolutely amazing, and I hope that it gains further traction. The vehicle that you see on the bottom right there, that was our very first Ford Escape that we put a satellite dish on top of, and that is in Anza, Borrego. So the tour there was, you have California bighorn sheep, and Anza, Borrego is also one of those sites that has dinosaur bones. So it's been a huge hit for California schools. And some of the programs that we've done over the year, we've had scuba divers, California lifeguards, go in the water and actually have camera systems in their masks speak to kids at their school. So we would have a cable that would run up to a buoy, and we would pull that signal to the beach. And it's just amazing thing. So I'm very happy to be able to share this with you. And hopefully you would like to learn more and help us out, maybe sponsor a park. And that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, Paul, would you like to take us from here for the data initiatives and challenges?
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. So as you can see, Parks is a diverse department, physically diverse in where all of our parks are located, the cultural diversity that we have, and the assets that we maintain, and even in the people that we employ. So that diversity of parks is reflected in the data that we collect and manage, store, and report. Some of the challenges that we have with our data is decentralized. That data exists in many physical locations: parks, district's office, divisional offices, our agency, vendors, and other partnerships. There's an immense variety to the data at parks, from law enforcement data to cultural, geospatial, reservations, passes, environmental, security. Our data runs the gamut from public to confidential, and even in access. Accessing the data can be a challenge, whether it's a desktop, a network shared database at the divisional level, department level, spreadsheets, cloud, on-prem. So thanks, Patrick. Actually, that would be great. Hit the next slide. So to meet those challenges, we have two primary initiatives. The first is a data warehouse. And the goal there is to do operational and analytical reporting across the department data. Our current focus is on an operational data store, allowing us to relate data from multiple sources. The next phase of that involves dimensional modeling and data marts to meet very specific requirements. The second initiative is our data management program. So that's based on the GovOps state data strategy and the data.gov federal data strategy. So we're using the Data Management Association model, their DAMA model for governance and architecture. And the goal there, two goals there are for our organization to see data as an asset, and then from that to make data-driven decisions. So our data warehouse, go ahead, Patrick, click through all of those and they'll just pop up. Our starts with, as an overview, our data sources, external databases, internal data stores, files. Those get moved into our extract engine, which does the validation, cleansing, and then reports any exceptions. The next step in that process is the transformation engine that applies standards and models. Then finally, the load engine takes that data and places it in a Parks data warehouse. That next layer that you see is the semantic layer. The idea behind that semantic layer is to translate the internal data dictionary to a business usable reference. And then finally, the presentation layer, where we have tabular reports, drill down, drill through, dashboards, and then analytics. And then the next slide. Thank you, Patrick. So this is a more detail behind our current data warehouse. Again, an operational and analytic side of it, showing our sources, which include a reservation, a legacy reservation, a maintenance data, census data, surf line, our law enforcement data, that data going into the Parks warehouse. For at the top, you can see our internal analysis and reporting, including dashboards and KPIs, what ifs and trends. Some of that data, where it's appropriate, going out to the open data portal for information sharing, for research and just transparent public access. And then that bottom section is our reservations interface. Right now, we have an interface with an organization called HipCamp, which is able to see our inventory. And so some of the cool things that we see in the future, and Robert mentioned some of this in his presentation about surf conditions and cameras, we can actually take the data from a company called Surfline, apply that to our historic data to understand trends in our state beaches, but also apply that to look at, for instance, a northern swell that's scheduled to hit the coast next week, and help predict attendance to help our parks staff accordingly. All right, next slide, Patrick. Our data management program has these 6 goals, and we're just at the start of that program, but you can see it there. The idea is to optimize the management of our data, to mature our data literacy as an organization, and then delineate the data ownership and stewardship so people understand what they're responsible for, define some key data governing roles, ensure that the relevant tools and technology are available. And that last point, this is really the key point, is to build and foster a data-driven culture. And we're starting to get that in some of the conversations that Patrick and I have had recently with not just executives, but managers as well, who have said, we want to make data-driven decisions. So that's encouraging, and we're setting up the structure to make that happen. So that's the data side of parks. Thank you.
All righty.
All right.
Well, Patrick,
thank you.
I'm not sure if you're done. We're about 15 minutes to the top of the hour. We're starting to get some questions. If you're ready for them, we can get started.
Yeah, that was the content of our presentation, Bill. Thank you. Yeah, I'm ready.
Excellent. Well done. So thorough and informative. So thank you for that. The team did a great job. So I've got a couple of questions, and I see they're lining up in the chat. So please put your questions in the chat function, and we will get to those. Looks like we have plenty of time. So a couple of questions related to the data, since that was the most recent topic we were covering. Just, in terms of AI and RPA, to use some buzzwords, to throw those in there, do you have any initiatives or any, thoughts about ways to apply those two approaches using AI or RPA?
Good question. Again, I would say our data warehouse is just in the initial stages. As I mentioned, we started with the operational data store, which is taking data sets and then relating them across sources. I absolutely see AI as a tool in the future. For instance, taking maintenance data, attendance data, combining those in the warehouse, and then having an AI system raise the hand to say, hey, this particular facility needs this type of maintenance based on the usage and based on its life cycle. So absolutely, I see us using AI.
Okay, excellent. Looks like, so we've got a question from Vicky. What tools are currently being used in the data stack for extract, transform, store, and present?
I'll take that again. Well, today we are SQL Server based. Currently, we are running SQL Server on Azure. Our goal is to move to Azure SQL. And within that SQL Server stack, we're using SSAS, or SQL Server Acquisition Services to move, SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services, to move that data from our source, to do the cleansing, the validation, and then move it into the correct models within the data warehouse. We're not doing anything fancy yet. It's all pretty simple. Again, we're taking it steps at a time. We do have a new attendance data warehouse analyst and architect starting, who's going to focus on some of those things that Patrick talked about, the challenge that we have on the attendance side, collecting and collaborating that attendance data and then presenting it, because attendance data is our executives' key metric. And our goal is to be able to put up a dashboard. Again, we're in the Microsoft stack, so it would be via Power BI, that would provide them with not just historic attendance, but also attendance trends, and then allow other people in the staff to be able to drill down, cross-relate that data to census data, and also some of the surveys that we're conducting to determine the demographics of the people who are coming into our parks and the demographics of people that we would like to better serve.
Absolutely.
Terrific.
The data is
Okay,
a popular topic.
Let's go ahead and move through some more questions here. What is the timing for the DW RFP release, and have you down selected the technology?
I'm not sure. I can take that question. I don't know if we're talking about the data warehouse as much as that question is geared towards the reservation system.
It's not clear from the question.
Yeah, we're not currently conducting any procurement related to our data warehouse. The only major procurement that we're kicking off is the project approval life cycle and the procurement development for our new reservation system contract.
Okay. Well, so I have a follow-up on that. I was going to ask about that anyway. So in your market research and in your approach to replacing this system, can you talk about other comparable systems out there? Like, did you find another state reservation system that was similar, or maybe in another industry like an airline or something? Can you talk about the scope and the complexity of that reservation system?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are several key players in the recreational space as far as reservation systems go. There are companies that support a National Park Service and other state entities and waterways for reservations at docks and things like that. So we've done quite a bit of market research in that space. We know who the major players are who are probably most likely to respond to our RFP. Yeah, so I'm sorry, can you hit me with the second part of that question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk about the scope and the complexity of like where else, what are other comparables out there for modern reservation systems that you might have looked at?
Yeah, I would think the nearest competitor would probably be the National Park Service and their website that they have. It's a very complex system. Moving forward, folks are looking at integrating things like I touched on, like a digital wallet, right? Being able to set up user profiles that carry with it all the information about the preferences of that particular user, where they like to go, what they like to do when they're on vacation or camping in our websites. So yeah, it's very complex. The next generation, so to speak, reservation system is going to be an integration of not only that e-commerce component of it for the making the reservation and or the booking a tour, but it's really going to be, as I stated, that holistic solution of bringing all those other partners with them that specialize in the pay by phone space or specialize in the APM space or specialize in rural connectivity and getting connectivity out to those rural spaces in order to make that happen. So what we're looking for in our next reservation system, a comprehensive meshing together, so to speak, of all those different types of solutions, including the digital wallet that I spoke of earlier. A big large component of that is going to be the integration of all that data. So getting all that data into one place, whether it's into our into our data warehouse, or whether or not it's access for state parks to that data to get into our data warehouse for further analysis and decisions. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Looking at a new reservation system that will probably be an aggregate of multiple solution providers kind of partnering and getting together to put forward a proposal that is inclusive of everything that it is that we're looking for.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. So one last follow-up on the reservation system. Gil is asking, what's the PAL stage currently for that?
Currently, we are developing our stage 1 business analysis. So we're in the process of putting that together. So we are just at the very beginning of the process of engaging with Department of Technology, letting them know that we have a thing, right? We have a project that we're going to do, and making everybody aware of our timeline. So we're at the stage 1 business analysis phase and collecting all the appropriate documentation of the business issues, the problems and the challenges that kind of will help to form that holistic solution that we were speaking of earlier.
Okay, thank you. So great, getting more questions in. Thanks everyone for jumping in here. So Cheryl has a question, and I think this might be related to the reservation system, but just I'll let you answer as you will. Are you open to a 2-week POC to combine attendance data and other data, Excel, SQL server, to create executive dashboards? Will include data lineage, ability to recreate analytics. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does absolutely make sense to us. We are always open to conversations about things that will bring additional opportunities and will help to, speed up our data program. So we welcome a conversation for sure.
Yeah, and Patrick, if you don't mind to follow up on that, we've had conversations and POC discussions with folks from Google about mobility data, and they provided some very, very interesting data points for us. We're not quite there yet to move on with that solution and engaging with them on a larger basis, but always interested in those types of trials and POCs.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul.
Excellent. Okay, jumping around here. Amanda wants to know, what are your current thoughts and efforts related to accessibility, i.e. those with limitations such as vision, hear, etc.?
Right. So I didn't touch on accessibility, but accessibility is a standard for everything that we do. We've been working on continually improving the accessibility of our current reservation system. We've been working over the last several years to make sure that not only accessibility from a WCAG perspective, but usability for folks that are using assistive technology is there. And so we've most recently redesigned the look and feel of our website about a year ago. We brought in our contractor that runs our system was brought in under our encouragement, brought in a accessibility specialist to do a redesign of the website. And so that redesign was recently put into production, I think about the beginning of 2022, I think it was. And so there is a new look and feel. There have been improvements made. Accessibility is something that's very important to state parks. It's something that we want to make sure that it goes right along with accessibility goes right along with equity for all folks that want to enjoy our state park system. And so I can't understate the effort and the amount of work that's been done in trying to make improvements. There's always work to do. Accessibility is kind of a funny thing because accessibility really has a lot to do with usability as opposed to technical accessibility. And so the usability component is a little more squishy. And so for lack of, that's a technical term. And so we're trying to make sure that we're continually working on making improvements to the workflows that are in our system and how they interact with folks using assistive technology. I hope that answered that question.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, so we're down to about 3 minutes. So here's the lightning round challenge. Will you be using the new GSA ePay master service contract for processing payments?
You know, I'm not aware of what that contract is, so that's news to me. So
Okay.
There's a new ePay contract.
Apparently, and
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but that's something we'll definitely look into. As part of our new reservation system, one of the things that we're looking at doing is looking at making changes to, you know, who is the merchant of record on a lot of our transactions. When we procured our existing reservation system, State Parks is the merchant of record, so we're actually the collector of the funds, and then we actually pay the funds to our vendor partner for their share. We're looking at really flipping that to having the vendor partners for the new reservation system be the merchant of record. And so in that, we're really taking that that requirement around PCI compliance and really placing it back into the hands of our vendor partner, right? Who I think are better equipped to be able to not only respond to the attestation of compliance and are more versed in the area of PCI compliance. So we're thinking about flipping that ownership to place the department in a place to be more successful. That's been that attestation of compliance and self-assessment. We've been going through that for the last 2 years as a department, and we are working very hard to make sure that we're compliant with that. Physically, we have what we believe is a fantastic compliant PCI compliant network, thanks to Robert and his folks. There are a lot of different layers to that assessment, including policy, procedures, standards, practices, documents, right? There's all different types of compliance that's required there. And so we think that some of our vendor partners might be in a better position to respond to some of those requests.
excellent. All right, well, so one final question. We've got about a minute left, and I just want to thank you all for an awesome presentation and so much rich information. It's been really great. We're getting tons of comments and compliments on the presentation. So final question of the day. I missed this earlier. It's from Mike. Are you leaning towards prem or cloud solutions? Generally speaking, I guess.
Yeah, I can answer that question. And I think, you know, Robert and his folks thankfully started moving towards cloud solutions early on in my tenure here as a CIO. In fact, we were in a really good position when the pandemic hit and we had to send our workforce home, strictly because Robert was already in the process of moving a lot of our on-prem solutions into the cloud. So, you know, our ability, and Robert's ability to, and his staff to implement the remote desktop application and get folks access to the key business applications that they needed access to from their home was huge in Park's ability to be up and running and functional very quickly within a week. So yeah, we're generally moving towards cloud. And in fact, the majority of our solutions are there now, and we have very few remaining on-prem solutions in our CNRA data center, and we're planning on keeping it that way.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and close out. I just want to again thank you so much for your time today. Presentation was outstanding. Thanks to everyone for attending. Check it out on our website. We're going to post the recording and email out the link probably next week early. So thanks for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much.